Today I'm comparing two awesome televisions, and this really is a battle of panel tech. In the red corner we have the brute force brightness of qd-mini-LED technology, and in the pink corner, because that's LG's brand colors, we have the surgical precision of OLED tech. So the qd-mini-LED TV that I have here is the all new TCL C8K. It is one of their upper range sets right now, and it is up against what some might consider to be the reigning champion in the premium OLED market at its price point. This is LG C5 OLED. But before we get into this, I need to make you guys aware of the elephant in the room. There is a pretty significant price gap between these two screens. So do me a favor at the end of this video, once you've considered all of the facts, let me know whether you think the OLED is worth the extra cash, or if the TCL C8K is the giant killer TV that you've been looking for. So let's start with the physical hardware differences, because these two TVs couldn't be any more different. So when you look at the LG C5, it is exactly what you would expect from a premium OLED TV. It is incredibly thin at just 2.3 centimeters at its thickest point. At its thinnest, it's incredibly thin, and if you are going to be using this TV on its provided stand, it kind of looks like a floating piece of glass, which is really quite nice. And it weighs just 18.5 kilograms. You might need to know that if you're going to hang it on the wall. Although there is one thing you need to keep in mind, you have to be a bit gentle with the LG C5 because it is that thin. Now, on the other hand, the TCL C8K is built like a tank. At its thickest point, it's 5 centimeters thick, and it is significantly heavier at 23.5 kilograms. But with this does come some advantages. It houses a pretty complex MLA mini LED backlighting system behind that glass. And I will explain the MLA tech when we get to the picture part of this video. And something else impressive about the C8K's design is that TCL has put a lot of work into creating a zero border look, and they've done this by narrowing the bezels all the way around the display. And I'm told that only Samsung's very expensive 8K TV is the only other one to have achieved this. And also that TCL's architectural design process is in fact the world's first. So these narrow bezels will definitely help you stay more focused on the content and less distracted by the frame around it. Now, something you need to consider, being that it's thicker, it will stand out a bit further from a wall if you're wall mounting it. But here is an interesting advantage for the TCL. The stand that it comes with is also very nice, just like the C5s, but it is height adjustable, which is a huge win if you plan to put a soundbar underneath it. And there are two different height settings, so you can adjust the height to match that particular soundbar. And something I like about the C8K design is that metal frame that runs around the outside of it. It definitely adds to the premium look that it has. But design isn't just about looks, it's also about connectivity, and this is where LG strikes back again. The LG C5 has 4 HDMI ports, all 4 of them supporting HDMI 2.1. This means if you're a serious gamer and you have a PlayStation, an Xbox, a Nintendo and a PC, and you want to hook them all up at the same time, well, this TV is well equipped for that. The TCL C8K also has 4 HDMI ports, but only 2 of them have full bandwidth HDMI 2.1. So those are the ones you would use with a games console. The other 2 support 4K 60Hz, which is perfectly fine for streaming devices and Blu-ray players. So that won't be a deal breaker for most people, but if you are, like I said before, a serious gamer with multiple gaming devices, then maybe the LG takes the win here. However, the TCL has a couple of advantages of its own. One is the fact that if you are a PC gamer and you're willing to play at HD resolutions, you can get 288 Hz to this panel. And with the extra thickness of the frame on the C8K comes power in the way of a 90 watt 2.1.2 channel system from Bang & Olufsen, a very high-end audio company, which on paper should absolutely crush the LG C5's 40 watt stereo system. So that's definitely something you want to keep in mind if you're not planning to buy external audio equipment like a soundbar. Okay, now let's get into maybe the most important part of this video, the picture quality. This is really a classic trade-off of brightness versus contrast. The TCL C8K really is a QD mini LED powerhouse with 1680 local dimming zones, which allows it to get close to the OLED black levels, and it can do this by turning off parts of the display. But the headline number for the C8K is definitely its brightness. It can reach up to 4500 nits, which makes this TV absolutely perfect for a very bright room. So that 4500 nits is very impressive when you compare it to the 1000 nits of peak brightness on the LG C5. And the advantage that this will give to you is if there are reflections on your screen, that power can power through those reflections and you'll still be able to see your picture very clearly. And of course, this will help with HDR and bright lighting environments, and the color saturation and vibrancy will also be lifted and enhanced by that extra brightness. And it's also worth noting that a lot of professional movie and TV content is mastered with peak brightness levels being between 1000 and 4000 nits. So this does mean that in brighter scenes, some TVs may not be able to match the creator's intent. And when this happens, this can cause clipping in highlight details. And did you know that the HDR10 format technically supports up to 10,000 nits? Now, it's not used all of the time right now, but I think it's worth mentioning as the brightness levels here on the C8K is better suited to support this kind of content in the future. Now let's talk about the LG C5. 1000 nits doesn't sound that impressive, but actually it is going to be enough for most people and really well suited for darker rooms. And generally speaking, it is a different kind of experience compared to qd-miniled. And that's because of the nature of organic light emitting diodes. Each pixel on an OLED panel can be switched off with precision, and this allows this TV to create perfect black even when next to bright white. So essentially you do get infinite blacks on an OLED. So this kind of dynamic range can allow the TV to be more accurate and in some cases more colorful depending on the content. But actually the color gamuts of these two TVs are very close, and I don't think you're going to be disappointed with either one. But let's go back to the MLA technology. This is actually known as a HVA panel, and what it is each one of the diodes has this kind of butterfly window in front of it that can really cut the light out when next to bright white. So you do get very good precision from this TV, and not all QD mini LEDs have this. And something I really like about both of these TVs is on the C5 you've got the filmmaker mode, which is very accurate straight out of the box. And on the TCL, you've got dedicated modes for specific streaming services, and these color profiles have been calibrated by professionals specific for the type of content on those platforms. And it will also switch into those for you with minimum effort, so you don't really have to go in and play with the colors and things like that very much. Also, the TCL supports Dolby Vision IQ, which means it can use this light sensor on board to adjust the colors according to the ambient light in the room you have it set up in. The LG does also have a light sensor, but it doesn't work with Dolby Vision IQ. So maybe that's a little bit of a win for the TCL. So when it comes to the picture, the simplest question to ask yourself is, what do you prioritize more? Brightness or pitch black darkness? So let's talk about what it's actually like to use these televisions on a daily basis. The TCL C8K is running on the Google TV platform, so if you're an Android user, you're going to feel right at home here. The app selection is massive. You've got the Google Play Store on there with thousands and thousands of apps, and I'm told you can even sideload apps onto the Android system if you want to, if they're not available on the Play Store. Since it is a Google TV, it's got one of the best search engines on it, and it's also got the Google Assistant, so you can operate the whole thing just using your voice with the built-in mic on the remote. And the content suggestion is also very good. You will know when the latest film comes to streaming, and you will know when there's a new movie that you can rent that's just come out in the cinema. And you won't see very many ads, which is nice. The entire operating system is very fast and snappy and quite intuitive. It's not difficult or overcomplicated. And even within the settings menu, Google have kept it very simple. Now, LG are sticking with their WebOS platform, which is their own software, and it is quite similar to the Google TV platform. You have these dedicated cards at the top, so so you can customize those. You can also download pretty much any app, but it's not quite as seamless as the Google TV platform. There is some customization that you can do on the LG TVs, which is nice, but one of the big downsides to it, in my opinion, is the amount of adverts. And yes, they can be switched off, but that takes a bit of effort because some of them are well hidden within the menu system. But a standout feature for the LG TV is definitely the pointer remote. So it works kind of like a Nintendo Wii remote, where it can sense where you're pointing on the screen. So this is great for when it comes to typing things in on a keyboard. So when it comes to the user interfaces, I do prefer the Google TV platform. It's a bit more refined and easier to use. That's not to say you can't get used to WebOS, because you definitely can. And it's probably worth mentioning, the only other company aside from Samsung that have Xbox is LG. But on the TCL, you do have tons of streaming services, including GeForce Now. So when it comes to actually using these on a daily basis, maybe you should ask yourself, do you prefer the sound of the pointer remote, or do you like the idea of the Google Assistant voice controls? Because those are two big wins on either side. Okay, now let's talk about the numbers, because this might be the deciding factor. The 65-inch TCL C8K comes in at roughly £1,149 at the time of this video. The LG C5 65-inch comes in at roughly £1,699. That is a £550 price difference, and that is pretty significant. You could buy a PlayStation 5 Pro and the TCL C8K instead of the C5. So here's my final bit of advice when it comes to deciding between these two very impressive televisions. You might want to buy the TCL C8K if you have a very bright living room, you watch lots of sports, you appreciate those color calibration presets, and you're looking for the very best value for money when it comes to qd-mini-LED TVs, because this one right here at this price point is very hard to beat. It gets you to around 90% of the flagship performance, but for 60% of the price. And let's not forget the powerful Bang & Olufsen calibrated sound system, and the fact that historically LED panels have a better lifespan, which some might say makes it the value champ in 2025. However, you might want to buy the LG C5 OLED if you tend to have your TV in a darker room and you don't care that much about the peak brightness. And also, if you're a real avid gamer and you have tons of gaming hardware, the 4 HDMI 2.1 ports might benefit you. Or if you really like the sound of having an extremely thin TV, that is something that extra £550 will get you. And I guess another reason you might go for the C5 is if you simply must have those infinite blacks. But here is a small risk to consider when going with an OLED. There is always a small potential for screen burn-in. That's kind of the trade-off for the expanded colors and contrast that you get with an OLED panel. So let me know, guys, would you spend the extra money and go for the LG C5 OLED for that darkness and precision? Or would you save some money, go for the C8K and get that extra brightness and also maybe an extra gaming console or maybe a holiday? And if you're not sure what to do with that extra £550 if you do go for this one, well, there is a super thanks below this video and I would greatly appreciate you using that. Okay, I'm joking. But what you should know is both of these TVs are fantastic. If you want to check out the prices on either one, there will be links below this video. If you want more in-depth specs and things like that, check out WhatGear.net. There'll be a written version of this with far more technical details. So I appreciate you guys for watching this one. Leave me a comment, let me know what you think. And if you just subscribed, you're now one of the finest subscribers known to man. I will see you in the next one. Don't be late.